Hey Peter, aloha.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on, brother?
I'm doing fine. Good to speak to you again.
It's great to speak to you again. Well, first and foremost, a big aloha, mahalo, and welcome back, my brother. It's great to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's lovely. I wish I was there.
I still remember hanging out with you and Julian. It was 10 years ago, I believe, the last time that you played the islands, if that's
That's right. Yeah, Julian was there. That's right. Yeah, I just got off the phone with him. So he's in Los Angeles.
nice, nice. And so first, what city are you in right now?
I'm in Nashville
Okay.
and loving it here. It's just, I've got so many friends here. And I was in Los Angeles and then moved around
Yeah.
ended up ended up here in Nashville because the great thing about Nashville is that even if all your friends don't live here before and after COVID, they come through this town. It's like a New York,
Right.
musicians. So because they're always playing on sessions or visiting or writing, and it's a phenomenal creative place for music here.
Yeah, no, I was reading all about it through the book, your journey through so many cities, and we'll actually start at the end of the book, which details the beginning of your pandemic experience, just to get that in first. So in early 2020, you were getting ready for the UK European Union leg of your finale tour. You were taking a trip from your home in Nashville to Florida, as I read, and heading back, and that's when you began to get hints of what was to come. Take it from there and just, I guess, share your story of how you first became aware of the pandemic and how it both knocked out the tour and affected other plans of yours.
Right. Well, right at the end of the U.S. Canadian leg, which was around about the middle of October, I came down. I was in Maui, and with my daughter Mia, and we spent a wonderful, wonderful week there. And then went back, did some more writing in Nashville. Was starting on the book and stuff, and then I decided my girlfriend and I wanted to get away for a week. So we went to Naples. I didn't want to leave the country at that point. We just heard rumblings of something happening. And then we got back like the 9th of March. And when I got on the plane to come back, the guy in front of us was wearing a mask. And I thought, did I get the memo? What's going on here? Either he is sick or something's going on. And I then it dawned on me. So then by the time we got home to Nashville, everywhere was locking down, pretty much right after that. So we got in under the bell, as it were, and I've virtually been, in my place ever since. I have my little bubble here of about 3 or 4 people that are all super super careful, and then I have my home and my studio, and I just go between the two, and those are my two bubbles.
It's incredible how it's affected everybody's life, and none of their names are in the book, but some of the well-known musicians we lost to COVID include Manu Dibango, Adam Schlesinger from Fountains of Wayne, Ellis Marsalis, the father of Branford Delfeo and Wynton Marsalis, John Prine, Toots Hibbert of Toots and the Maytals. Did you know any of these cats, or were you touched by any of their losses? And in general, how have you been moved by these events?
Well, I did not know any of these people, unfortunately. I'm sure if he hadn't have, we hadn't have lost him, would have been a good chance I would have met John Prine if we weren't all locked down. But yes, it's very moving because there's, how do I say this? We needn't be where we are. That's the bottom line. If our leader had Mr. Orange had decided to in March wear a mask and not take it off on camera, things would be a lot different. And there's so many stupid people that don't believe that. So unfortunately, I'm going to get hate mail now. But anyone who doesn't believe that masks work are just go to. They should spend 48 hours in an ICU with all the people that work, all the doctors and nurses that are wearing their double masks, and they're not catching it.
Right.
Because they're working right with these. I'm so sorry they're working with all these patients that are, some make it and some don't, and we owe them, the doctors and nurses and essential workers, oh my goodness, we owe them so much gratitude. They are my heroes. And, it's just, they are so frustrated because no one is helping them. Or I can't say no one, the vast majority, I don't think they've all taken this stance where they don't think, it's over now, we don't need to wear a mask. It's not. It's the worst it's ever been. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, it's great to hear though, and we're doing a whole series Off the Road, which you're part of, and you echo what many performers have said and what many people with a heart have said. And you mentioned the word heroes. This book is in so many ways stories about heroes in your life, relationships, encounters with fascinating people. And I wanted to use our interview to explore some of these. And from going head to toe in the book, I've come up with a list of seemingly some of the most important people in there. And that's not in any kind of definitive order. But David Bowie comes up really, really fast in there. And when you meet him, he's David Jones. His background includes being a student of your father's, too. First, share the story of developing what would be a lifelong friendship with David.
Well, he's always been Dave Jones to me. So in the book, when I need to say out of the blue, I haven't mentioned Dave in a while, I say David Bowie. Right. But most of the time I just say Dave because that's the way I know him and that's the way he answers to me or did, it all started when I was not at the school that my father was teaching David. He was playing on the steps of the school on a weekend. It was a charity. We call them Garden Fetes, Fete. And it's like a charity afternoon to raise money for the school, but I noticed this band playing on the steps of the school, and it was the Conrads, and I'd heard about them, great local band. And then I looked on the end, and there was this guy playing this beautiful sax and singing songs of the day, Eddie Cochran songs, you name it, he was singing it. Little Richard, whatever. And I just said to my dad, because he was mesmerizing then, and he was what, 14, 15? So I just looked up at my dad and I said, Dad, who's that? He said, oh, that's Jones. He's very creative. So I said, well, Dad, I want to be him. And he said, oh, okay. So the next year, I turned 13, I guess, and then I went to the school, and first lunchtime I made a beeline for Dave. And George, it's very important to mention George Underwood at this time, because George was, they were frick and frack. They were the two that were in my dad's art class for 4 years, I think, and both incredible artists. George is now a fine artist. I have some of his work, and did David's Ziggy Stardust cover and another one, can never remember which one. And so they were lifelong friends. That was his best friend, I think. So there we are, sitting on the art block stairs, and my dad stored our guitars. In the morning, we put them in his office, and we get the guitars out, and we started jamming on the steps of the art block. And it was a great echo in there. So they were teaching me songs and I was teaching them other things, and we were just exchanging ideas. And that's when the friendship of the three of us started. And I've been friends with both of them for most of my life, you know. And and then I went my way and then Dave went his, and he was Davy Jones and the Nighttimers, David Bowie and the Lower Third, and all these different bands he was in. And I was in local bands, the True Beats and then the Preachers and everything. And we would occasionally play the same night, but on different times, you know, same stage, in different bands. And so we would stay in touch. And then one day it was the first time, I think, The Herd, the band that was the first band that became successful, that I was part of when I was 16, 17 in England and Europe. We had like 3 top 10 hits. And so Dave did an interview for Biography when they had on A&E, they used to have those. And so I was watching it in his part, and he said, yes, I'm sitting there on a Thursday night, and I turned on Top of the Pops, which is our only music, really our only music TV show for years. And he said, I turned on the TV and I looked and I squinted and I thought, wait, that's Peter. What is he doing on TV? He should be at school. So it's a wonderful line. And so I actually beat him on TV, you know, and he never let me forget it. So anyway, again, we would just see each other every now and again and hang out and whatever. And then I guess we fast forward to when David called me up. I had nothing really going on. I just had my first album out in about 5 years with Atlantic. It was the Premonition album, and it was 86 and 85 that came out, and I was touring. So Dave called me in 86 and said, I love what you're playing as usual on your new album. He said, would you come and play some for me on my next record? I was floored. And I said, absolutely. He said, I'll send you a ticket. Off we go. I'm off to Switzerland, where he was living at the time, and played on the Never Let Me Down record. And while I was there, that's when he asked me if I would be willing to be one of his guitar players on the Glass Spider tour. And I said, yes. So the thing is there that he could have chosen any guitar, as we know. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan had been there, Robert Fripp, so many phenomenal players. And so I felt honored that he would ask me. Finally, we get to play on the same stage at the same time, and I'm his guitar player, or one of the two.
Incredible.
And what he did was he gave me this gift of reintroduce. He knew what had happened, because he's the great reinvention man, and I wasn't, and I didn't know how to reinvent myself after the collapse of my career, after the satin pants and the bare chest and the teeny bopper portion of my career. And so he knew that, and he knew how frustrating it was for me. So he just asked me, he gave me this gift and reintroduced me around the world in stadiums as the guitar player. So I can never thank him enough, and I keep on thanking him.
And it's a guy who also was close to your family. He would invite your parents to see him at important professional engagements of him, like being on Broadway years later. He kept that relationship with, I mean, it's a very family relationship, the way that you describe his, you know, like I said, taking your parents to see him on Broadway in The Elephant Man, correct? Was the one of the...
That's yes, and I don't know, my father and he had a great relationship because my father was a great teacher. I can say that because I went to the school and I knew how he was regarded there. And I think that David showed such interest, and George, the two of them, that my dad would like zero in on kids that really wanted to learn.
Right.
As you do. He was good with everybody else, but these two were special, and yes, they did develop a life. Well, they did. I mean, when Dad passed, Dave was the first one to call the house.
Right.
So
it's touching, some of the stuff in there, as it connects to your parents, like you just said, both that part and the more joyous times that they shared together. Another cat that comes up a lot in the book is Stevie Wonder. And there is, this is a guy who played on one of your records. This is a guy
Right.
who would call you in the hospital after your accident. You backed him at the Grammys Beatles tribute. Tell us, start with how you first connected with him. And then I've named a couple of them, but share one of your favorite stories of just being up close and intimate with the one, the only Stevie Wonder.
Oh my goodness. Well, I was doing the I'm in You record, and I really wanted Stevie Wonder to maybe, it was a pipe dream, maybe I could. What if I could get Stevie Wonder to play some harmonica on the track, and he must know who I am by now. And so, and my mother and father were staying with me in New York at that time, so my mother said, "Well, call him up." So I said, "I can't." So I called Motown, and I said, "It's Peter Frampton. Is there any way you can put me in touch with Stevie Wonder?" And they said, "Oh, yes. Let me get back to you." So the next thing I know, Stevie Wonder calls me, and I said, "Would you please play some harmonica for me?" And he said, "I'd love to." And so he was in New York at the time. We were recording it where he recorded Electric Lady, and so he came down and played harmonica. And Mick Jagger was in the next studio next door, and he asked me if he could come in and watch. So there's my band, me, and Mick Jagger watching Stevie come up with this part. It's just, I'm still there. I can still see it, And then Stevie left, and Mick was still there. And then my parents came down. They missed seeing Stevie, but there's my parents. My dad is standing in the live room. We're in the control room, and I just see my dad having this long conversation with Mick Jagger, and it was just so wrong,
Right, because he had looked at the Stones as they were like real rebels and stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, and filthy dirty, They just look so dirty. I like the Beatles; they're clean cut, but the Stones are just not for me. So anyway, meanwhile, he comes in after he's talked to Mick, and he goes, "Wonderful chap, really nice man," So it was like, oh my, yeah, I'm not going to say anything there. So anyway, but I think the Stevie Wonder story that sticks out for me is I had my car accident in 1978, and July 4th, just to celebrate. No, July 2nd. That's right. It was just before July 4th. And so anyway, I get flown back up from Nassau, Bahamas to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York. And I guess I'm in about the second week of recovery. I've broken just about every bone in my body. And so it's about 2, 3 in the morning, and the night nurse, I had private nurses, and just comes in and wakes me up and says, I hate to wake you up. She said, but there's someone on the phone for you. And I said, who is it? And she said, he says he's Mr. Wonder. So I said, put him through. So then I pick up the phone, and it's Stevie, and I said, oh man. He said, I just want to call you, make sure you're doing okay. I heard how bad things, I heard about the accident and everything. And And I said, oh man, this is making my night, you know. And he said, well, he said, I've been writing some songs, as if he never wrote songs, you know. I've been writing some songs and I've got the tracks done, but I haven't done the vocal yet. So can I sing you a couple of songs live over the, please go ahead.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So he sings me not one, not two, but three songs over the phone with the track in the background. And he's singing live to me. And not one of them have I heard on a record.
Unreal.
So they're still there.
Private.
They're still waiting to come out. Then he taught me, we had touch tone phones, you know, the regular phone, the first digital phones where every time you hit the square button, it goes beep, beep, beep.
Yep.
Beep. Well, Stevie, because everything's audio for Stevie, then there's no visual distraction. He would play songs if you played two buttons at the same time, it would give you a different note. So he would play songs on the phone beeping, you know. It just, you know, little things like that. I will never forget. And was one of the nicest men, you know, he is. And yeah, it was wonderful. I can never thank him enough too.
Your stories are just too much. The sky is just out of control. You are armed today, Peter Frampton. It's unbelievable with these things. And I mean, reading it is one thing, but hearing you tell it is another. And I guess we segue because we'd be here for the rest of your life if we wanted to go through all of them, but I'm trying to go as fast as I can through the big ones.
I know.
George Harrison, there are a few big moments in this thing with George. I guess let's just do the first session first. The time that you meet him is mind-blowing. Share that story.
Okay, so Terry Doran was first John Lennon's personal assistant, then he was George's after that, and I became friends with him because he would come hang out in the clubs and stuff, and my wife and I, or girlfriend and I, Mary at the time, were friends with him, so we'd always meet up in the Ship, which was along Wardour Street, and so this time, it's just me and Terry, and he goes, so you want to meet, I forget his code name now, but it's in the book, but he said, do you want to meet so-and-so? I said, who? He said, George Harrison. I said, oh my God, is he here? He said, well, he's in Trident Studios. He's just down the road. I said, you're kidding me. I know where Trident is. So he said, you want to come? I said, you kidding me? I said, no, come on. So we walked down Wardour Street, turned right on into the little alley where Trident Studios is. And when you walk into Trident, the control room is upstairs. And the sort of like Abbey Road, where the control room is upstairs and then downstairs is the studio live room. And so I walked in the control room and I looked to my left and there's George standing behind the console. And he just looked up and he said, hello, Pete. So, and I sincerely looked behind me, I think, because I thought maybe Pete Townsend had walked in behind me. Because I thought, how can he know who I am? Oh, I mean, yeah, maybe he's seen me on TV as well. You know? You just don't think a Beatle will know who you are, you know?
Right.
So anyway, he came over, we're talking, and I'm shaking at this point, and he goes, so Pete, do you want to play? And I said, now? And he says, yeah, I'll show you the chords. I said, oh, okay. So he takes me downstairs, hands me this very famous red Les Paul called Lucy that I mean, since at that point, no one knew what it was, but it was 1970, 71 then. And it's a storied guitar anyway. You can read about it. But and he's showing me the chords, and I'm so fixated on watching him show me the chords, I don't realize that Stephen Stills is sitting to my left. So I say, oh my God. You know, that was when I first met Stills and as well. So we're sitting together doing these guitar parts. So he's playing rhythm. And then, so I thought, well, George shows me the chords, and he counts it down, and we're doing this song for Doris Troy, which is the first production that George had done for the Apple label, the Beatles label, and I knew Doris because she'd sung on Shine on Humble Pie's record, so and a great writer too, and so anyway, so I start playing rhythm very quietly. Because I figure I got Stephen Stills and George Harrison. I'm just going to be inconspicuous here. And we get halfway through the track, if that, and George stops his, no, Pete, I want you to play lead. So I mean, I thought the floor would open up and I'd disappear at that point, you know. And so I ended up playing all the lead parts, apart the lead fills, intro, and everything on Doris Troy's first single from that album called Ain't That Cute. And George did a slide solo in it as well. So we were both playing together. And that was probably one of the most incredible days of my life, you know. And needless to say, there's, you know, Klaus Voormann's playing bass and all these luminaries are in the studio. And I got sort of invited to be part of this Who's Who session band, you know, of George's, and so that was the first time. And then of course he called me back for a few weeks later, and he said, "Oh, I played on the rest of the Ain't That Cute album, so I played on about 5 or 6, 7 tracks on it." He invited me back straight away. So that was, I felt like, wow, I passed the audition. And a little bit later, you know, weeks go by and George calls, he would always call himself. He called me up and he said, "Pete, I'm doing my own solo record. Would you come and play some acoustic?" So I said, "I'll be right there." And so I ended up playing on about 5 of the tracks with the rest of the band, and met Pete Drake, the steel player from Nashville, who became a longtime friend after that.
And who introduced you to the talk box.
Yeah, he did, right there in Abbey Road. And it was that you can actually go on YouTube and hear the audio of when he's demonstrating it to me and George.
It's incredible.
And they recorded it. And you hear George talking and laughing, and me laughing with George, and Pete doing singing the song that's coming out of his mouth that is actually the pedal steel is doing it out of this tube, you know. So it blew me away, and that's when I had to go start looking for one for myself. But I think the most special time for me with George was, well, there's more than one, but later on, during the making of All Things Must Pass, he calls me back up again and he says, "Look, Phil Spector is producing," and you know, we had 2 drummers, 2 piano players, 2 bass players, you know, just like the wall of sound, and it sounded like that, you know. It was phenomenal, you know. And I've always thought of him as a killer producer. Pause for laugh. Okay, and anyway, so George calls me up and says he wants more acoustics. I said, "Really?" He said, I know, but let's do it." So it's just me and George sitting on 2 stools facing Phil Spector behind the glass. And we're overdubbing on all the ones I played on. And then George said, "Oh, you didn't play on this one, so, but here's the chords." He would quickly, I'm a quick study, so he'd show me the chords. So I overdubbed with George acoustic on just about everything that has acoustics on, and I don't remember what I'm not playing on, to be honest. And so that was the most special moment for me, just the 2 of us, and in between takes we'd jam. It doesn't get better than that.
No, it doesn't. I mean, you have so many stories, it's a little ridiculous, and you're so good at telling them. So many people have great experiences, but they can't always put them into story form. So kudos for your ability to tell it like a story, because it really plays on radio so well. And do I have time for one more, or do you want me to just cut it and go to the end of the thing?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
You
Go
sure?
ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate it because you've got so many. So it's your, and I'll give you your choice. Do you want to tell? Do you want to tell? You can do either. We can go with Bill Wyman and the Stones, starting you off with the Ready Steady Go thing, or because it's. I mean, again, I'm just handpicking. There's so many more, but the other one would be the Stephen Ford, son of Gerald Ford. I mean, nobody. Oh, we're just chatting, as you put it in the book. which one do you enjoy the most? Because that's. I mean, I'm trying to respect your time limits, but you're just this book is it's too much, man. It's just too much.
What was the first one?
It's either I was going to do Bill Wyman and
oh yeah, that's because there's some humor there. Not that there wasn't with Stephen Ford, but well, Bill was introduced to the Rolling Stones by the drummer who was in the band at the time, Tony Chapman. So Tony Chapman introduced Bill into the Stones, and then unfortunately along the way, Tony was replaced by Charlie. Unfortunate for Tony but good for Charlie and the rest of us.
Yeah.
So Bill felt indebted to Tony for obvious reasons. And said, look, if you get a band together, I'll help you. I'll produce it and help manage it and all that. So anyway, I'm working in a shop in Beckenham, where I was born, and South London, and in a music shop. And all the local big musicians would come in, and I'd sell them strings and sticks and picks and all that sort of stuff. When I was just on a Saturday, this was when I was very young. And so Tony Chapman comes in. He goes, I've heard you're a pretty good player. He said, I want to, would you join this band, semi-pro band I'm doing? And it was with all these luminaries from fantastic local bands. And I said, wow, yeah. I said, but I can only do Fridays and Saturdays. I'm still at school, I'm 14. So he says, okay, all right. So anyway, next thing I know, we're in a van and we're picking up Bill Wyman in Penge, which is where he lived, over a gas station in an apartment. This is the time of 19th Nervous Breakdown, and was released. And Bill, we've left the front seat for him. It's this horrible Austin van, horrible, and with all the gear in it. And he gets in the front seat, and Tony's driving. So they're talking, and we're just looking at each other in the van in the back. We're going, we got a Rolling Stone in the front seat. It was it was so wild, And so anyway, we get up to the studio and we cut this single that ended up we almost did enough for an album, but then the Stones took over Ready Steady Go, which was our live music show of the time. It was Top of the Pops, You Mind, and then Ready Steady Go, you played live. So it was called, they renamed it for 1 week, Ready Steady Stones.
Wow.
And which of course they called Ready Steady Stoned. And so Bill chooses, they each get a band to choose. So Bill obviously chose us because he had invested in us. And so there I am in the afternoon, and I'm just hanging out with Ian Stewart, the Stones road manager, who now I knew pretty well, and by this time, and he's changing strings on Keith's guitar, and I'm just sort of helping him and sitting there. And then, we do our thing in the show, and then I watched the Stones for the very first time do Satisfaction. So it was history. It was a history-making show. But the special part about that story is that it was the only show that was pre-taped. It was still live music, live to tape, because of the availability of the Stones and all the artists on the show. So Michael Lindsay Hogg was the American director, and he invited all the artists up to his office to watch the show after we'd finished taping it. So I'm this diminutive 14-year-old standing, and Mick Jagger's on one shoulder, one side of me, and Keith Richards is the other, and Bill's over there, and all these other, Manfred Mann they were on the show, they were all there, and they're watching me play guitar on this TV show. It was like, I just couldn't believe this was happening, So that was the first time I was in a room with all the Stones, and I've known them most of my life.
The first of many, and people got to get the book to read about some of the other stories. That's a good teaser right there, because it really, seriously, he's loaded it down. Do You Feel Like I Do, the memoir from Peter Frampton. And man, I know you've told these stories a gazillion times, but I certainly hope that you had fun joining us today as part of our Off the Road series and being on the air back in Hawaii, a place I know you love.
Oh, yes, I do. As I told you, that was the place I wanted to go to after our finale tour with my daughter. So we had a wonderful time.
I hope that when this thing all clears up, we can have you come back. And but I know that you're not going to. What's going to be the resumption for when this, if and when, fingers crossed, are you going to get back to the EU and do the finale tour there, or no?
It's I have to be realistic. There's a couple of clocks running against each other.
IBM.
One is the IBM clock, and it's progressing, but it's progressing very slowly. But the other clock is the COVID clock. So, and then of course we've all got our life clocks. So I am just hoping upon hope that we get rid of this, and we get the siren blasts, the all clear, in time for me still to be able to play and go around the world and visit the places, especially Europe, because that's where I come from. And I said goodbye musically and with the finale tour to America and Canada. And I would just love to be able to do it. We had the Albert Hall lined up, and I'd never played the Albert Hall as myself.
Right.
Played it with other bands, but it was a dream come true that we got that gig. So I really hope that we'll be able to do that. But as I say, realistically, I can't say yes or no right now.
No, I hear you. You played there with Bill Wyman, and Mark Knopfler was on that gig too with you guys, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
As I recall.
Yes.
Well, even if you end up coming here just to tell stories, let me tell you, your storytelling is at a very, very high level.
Aloha, everyone. It's Peter Frampton. I had a lot of fun as part of the Off the Road series here on HBR. It was great to be back on the air with my friend Dave Lawrence. And what's even cooler, Dave invited me back for the pledge drive. So if you feel like I do, please make a pledge now, and a big mahalo to you.
And just as I let you go, my GM at this radio station actually has a funny connection to you. His name is Jose Fajardo. And back when he was young and working his way up like you, he was a senior in high school working for his high school newspaper in Puerto Rico when you played the big Coliseum there around 1980 or so.
Yes.
And the newspaper had mentioned the hotel you were staying in, the actual professional newspaper. And so he looked it up. He called the hotel asking for you to try to do an interview with you. And they put him through to your room. And he was like, "Hey, Peter, it's Jose Fajardo from the Pirate Times calling." And you just went click. So it really was a little connection, but I just had to throw it in there because
Tell him I'm so sorry.
He's always thought that was so funny. And was a big fan. You remember doing that gig a long time ago?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, the trip there. Yeah, and the gig. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured as much in that era. Well, hugs, high fives, and you have fun today. Was this okay?
This was great. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I love talking to you. I'm rooting for a lot of success. And if you ever do another round of publicity for these, I'm going to hang on to my notes. I got another batch of stories that are totally different than these. So
okay, well, the good thing is that April, I think the day before my birthday, April 21st, I think, is when we're releasing the next album, which is an instrumental covers record.
Right.
So maybe we could talk then.
Yeah, that would be great. And I'll hold on to my stuff. And you won't mind answering a few more book-related questions, will you?
The book is out there, and it's always hopefully going to be in print. So unless I've said something that really upset somebody. But
No. Well, there's so many things about you, like the whole Bonham connection, the drums, the son of Dracula. I mean, there's just a gazillion. We go on forever, but
I know.
just stay safe. Please feel, just know, a lot of people care about you. My mom had MS, so I'm very sensitive to what you're going through, and I give you a gentle hug and send you lots of aloha. I'm serious, brother. God bless you, Peter.
You're very nice. Thank you so much, Dave.
And really feel the love. People are rooting for you night and day, my brother. All right.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking to you in April.
We'll do that then. I'll talk to you then.
All right.
Godspeed, my friend.
Okie doke.
Stay safe. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.